guess we'll get started with our meeting here. This is kind of the final presentation for the Wells County Master Plan. I'm Jack Woods. I'm the Director of Civitas Strategies. It's the Community and Economic Development arm of the Veritas Group. When we started this project 2 years ago, all of our different divisions were the Veritas Group, but we've rebranded each one of them. So we've got a civil engineering group. Our team, the Community Economic Development side, is Civitas. So if you see that on here, but Veritas on the plan, we're still the same people. But it's really exciting to be here tonight and kind of bring some conclusion and wrap up to this process and share where we've been over the last 2 years or so. So we've got a presentation put together that walks through the plan, kind of how we got to where we are, and then some of the recommendations and findings throughout. Initially, when we started this process back March of 2024, I guess, yeah, so pretty much 2 years ago, we wanted to look at how we could kind of take the comprehensive plan and build on that and go to the next level of detail. And I think that's what we've done, and we're pretty intentional about being inclusive of 5 of the municipalities within the county and creating their own individual plans within the actual master plan itself. So we'll dive in and talk a little bit more about that process today. So what we want to cover, just quickly, the timeline, how the plan can be used by public officials, individual communities, some examples of the implementation matrix, and then really want to hit the vision principle for the county and how that aligns with the other visions and goals for each of the municipalities that we worked with. So again, this has been about a 2-year process. I think we launched this March of 2024. And then we did some initial analysis just to understand kind of what data was telling us about each of these communities, what strengths were, what weaknesses were, opportunities and threats. And then we spent really the rest of 2024 doing community engagement. So I think the first thing we did was a public meeting in Veracruz, which is pretty well attended for a town of its size. I think we had like a third of the town, or at least a fourth of the town, show up to that meeting, which was really great. We did a public meeting in Bluffton, Ossian, Uniondale, and Penedo. So that took us probably about 4 to 5 months, and then we started working with our steering committee to kind of develop the plan itself. And then there was just a few things, I wouldn't say road bumps, but just changes in leadership that slowed our process down. And we took the rest of 2025 to do some more intentional planning. And I think we've gotten to a point where all the communities are kind of on the same page, and everybody was able to flesh out their vision and presenting kind of the final iteration of the plan today. So Cody, I'll let you give an overview and kind of how to use the plan.
Yeah, so my name is Cody Leach. I'm a project manager with Civitas Strategies. So when you're reading through the plan, just in general, it'll start executive summary, introduction, and then talk about some context nationally, regionally for the master plan. And then it goes into some data, and we aren't going to really talk about the data in this, but the data is what, along with the engagement with the community, is what led to a lot of these vision principles and action items that we will talk about today. Each of those data points are comparison. So we took the county as a whole and compared it regionally to different counties around here. We took the communities and compared them to similar sized communities in neighboring counties, just to see where essentially they all rank in comparison to each other. And so some of the data that we looked at: population, economic performance, socioeconomic, housing, walkability, and a bike analysis. If you have a chance, it's pretty interesting to see how they compare to some of the other regional communities. And then we touch on the community engagement, as Jack highlighted, and we get into the individual community reports. And that's where, for the presentation today, we're going to spend a whole lot more of the time. The individual communities, we talked about the current conditions, the specific community meeting for each of them, then the future vision, focus areas, and finally an implementation matrix for each one of those. And those are broken down into countywide, so that's for the entire county, then specifically for the rural areas of the county, and we included Markle and Zanesville in those as well. They have their own little call-outs. And then the city of Bluffton has its own, the town of Ossian, town of Uniondale, town of Veracruz, and the town of Pinedo all have their own sections within the plan itself. And then it's the conclusion and next steps. So from a high level, that's the best way to look at the plan. For the implementation matrix, we just want to touch on it briefly here. It is probably the bulk of the plan itself. There's a couple copies back there. But there are two matrices within the plan. The first one has, this is an example of Vision 1 for the county. And so each vision has several strategies attached to it. And the first matrix will outline those, as well as the people who are responsible for them, where potential funding can come from, estimated cost of it in a $1 sign to $4 or $5 signs, as well as the priority and potential timeline for that. The second matrix, there's one of those for each strategy within the vision. So as you see on the top of this page, you can see it's Vision 1, Strategy 1 within the county. I have a couple other copies if you guys want some. Yeah. And then each strategy will have several objectives, and each of those objectives will have several tactics to really break down how these visions can be implemented. So as Jack said, this plan is building off of the Vision 2035 comprehensive plan. So really, we just took what we saw from that plan combined with the data and the community engagement to really take steps towards the implementation of a lot of those similar ideas, and as things have changed, to how can we continue to implement all of those. So I want to take a quick pause here. Do you guys have any questions about, in general, the overview of the plan itself? All right. Jack, you want to talk about that?
Sure. So really at the highest level of the plan are the 4 county vision principles. And we formed these. We had a pretty solid steering committee that was made up of representatives from each of the municipalities that are included in the plan and then the county itself. So that was the driving force behind this, in addition to a lot of public engagement, again, doing meetings in every community, and then a countywide survey. And I think we had a pretty good response to that. Cody, do you remember how many responses we had to the survey?
No, but I can.
So while Cody finds that, that was really the driver of this. And I think we went back and forth on some of these principles pretty intentionally to make sure that they aligned with the comprehensive plan and fit with kind of a solid vision for the future of Wells County, especially in terms of smart growth. We had 1,200 responses to the survey, which is pretty good. So the first vision principle for the county is to prioritize growth that enhances the quality of life for current and future residents by developing housing, infrastructure, jobs, and recreational opportunities that enrich the community fabric while preserving existing values. I think this really touches on that idea of smart growth. It shouldn't be growth that stresses our infrastructure or utilities or greatly changes the character of the county as a whole. So as you get into the plan, there are some land use suggestions or even growth areas, but really focusing on concentrating new development, around your urban hubs and places that development is already happening, looking at infill opportunities like vacant downtown parcels, residential parcels and things like that. So that's really how we structured that first piece, that first vision principle. The second is to strengthen collaboration among local communities, school systems, and government entities within Wells County to pool resources, share knowledge, and work towards common objectives that benefit all residents. One of the things that really came up in discussion and community feedback as we went through this process was that there's a lot of places, smaller communities in the county that are stretched thin when it comes to resources. And I think just with dynamics in local government right now, you're being forced to do more with less. So a lot of the strategies in the plan look at ways that the county can work with those communities, or communities can work together to essentially pool resources and create greater impact. Was kind of what we wanted to steer that principle towards. And then the third one is foster communities where residents are actively involved in shaping their surroundings, participating in civic activities, and contributing to the overall well-being of Wells County. You might feel this, but it probably seems like a lot of the same people are in leadership positions, which can create fatigue and burnout. We think it's really important from our perspective as consultants and advisors that healthy communities have like an active group of younger people that are coming in and helping share some of that leadership burden. So we wanted to address components in the plan that help create more civic engagement and strategies around that area. And then the final vision principle for the county is to develop a vibrant economy that supports local businesses, encourages entrepreneurship, and attracts new industries to create jobs and expand the tax base. Again, I think as we get into this more and look at specific strategies, it's all aligned under the concept of smart growth, right? Not sprawl or anything like that. And then really focusing on, in a lot of the community-specific parts of the plan, downtowns, and how downtowns can be revitalized and improved. I'm skipping ahead here a little bit, but when we look at the feedback that we got from the community as a whole, there was a lot of interest in additional retail, restaurants, places like that. So that's kind of the focus when we talk about entrepreneurship and new businesses. How do we get more of those types of establishments, especially in downtown? So questions on vision principles? All right, we will keep going. Yeah, I think you're talking about getting more specific into the rural areas, Kenny.
Yeah. So now we're going to start to get a little bit more specific within the plan, starting off with the rural areas. So like I mentioned before, each area, so the rural areas starting first, and then it'll be the city of Bluffton, and so on, will have its own executive summary. We'll have a current conditions report. This one is a little bit different. It has a Markle and Zanesville call out since they didn't participate fully within the plan, but we mentioned them briefly. And then it'll talk about the future vision principles as well as implementation. So for Markle, with the alignment that we found within our plan and within their current plans and future vision, it fits within their downtown, as Jack talked about, in corridor vitality, seeing housing diversity. It's something that we call out throughout the county, industrial and logistics, broadband, digital equity, and parks and recreation. Zanesville is a little similar. The active mobility and complete streets, housing diversity and growth targets, corridor-based economic development, digital equity, and remote work readiness, and asset management and capital planning. So for the rural areas, some of the vision principles that we established were to preserve agricultural integrity and open space, enhancing the quality of life through balanced growth, expand infrastructure and connectivity, and to promote economic vitality and local business growth. So each of these principles were based not only off of the community survey, which we were able to filter down to the people who live within the rural areas. So we were able to exclude all of the towns in the city to get just their feedback on those things, but then also comparing to the vision principles of the county as a whole. So we're not going to really touch on a lot of the implementation part of it today, as like I said before, that is a very long section of the plan, and we would probably be here much longer than anyone would like to be. So do you guys have any questions about the rural areas? A quick overview of it. All right.
So for the rest of the presentation, again, we want to focus more on the municipalities that directly participate in the master planning process. So we'll start with Bluffton, and then for each one of these, we'll talk about kind of the community engagement and what key takeaways were there. And then we'll get into vision principles and kind of focus areas of the plans themselves. So here on this slide, you can see this is pretty representative of the boards that we had at our public input session, which was done at the Park Pavilion. I think we had a full house, standing room only, about 60 people attend, so pretty good turnout for an evening meeting. And we asked people to prioritize the types of development or amenities that they wanted to see in their community. A green dot was highly prioritized, a yellow was neutral, and then a red was that should be a low priority or do not want. And this kind of indicated, again, the types of things people would want to see in terms of development or redevelopment. And again, the overwhelming runaways was downtown riverfront development and quality dining and entertainment options, which I think both of those align pretty well. So as we built out Bluffton's section of the plan, we really leaned into that. And then also worked with the council and mayor to incorporate their priorities because they've been doing some pretty intensive strategic planning and wanted to make sure those were reflected. Cody, is this you again?
Yeah, this is me again. So building off of that, with the change in leadership in the last year for the city, they wanted to have a little more intensive planning process. So these vision principles, are mostly based off of the ones we came up with. Then the city kind of took them, they sent them out within the council and staff and really continued to work on them and fully develop them even more. So I will add that they are longer than the rest of them. Part of that is because of the city working on them. So I don't want anyone to feel like we didn't put as much into the other places as we did Bluffton. These ones are just going to be a little bit longer. So the first one, downtown Bluffton and the riverfront will be a vibrant and connected mixed-use hub. That was something that we saw a lot of people want. Bluffton will invest in modern infrastructure to support growth, improve connectivity, and enhance the quality of life. Bluffton will work to restore, strengthen, and expand access to healthcare and wellness services to ensure residents can obtain essential medical, behavioral, and preventative care. And that Bluffton will strengthen its community fabric through housing, developing a citywide strategy that maximizes value per acre and promotes connectivity and engagement. So those are the first four. And the last three here, that Bluffton will foster effective and innovative teams within the municipality that deliver transparent, efficient, and results-driven processes, measurable in impact, focused on delivering high-quality public services while delivering a highly valued work experience for its employees. Bluffton will create and sustain vibrant, clean, and accessible spaces that reflect our local flavor and heritage, enrich the quality of life, and serve as a welcoming, attractive destination for residents, businesses, and visitors, offering fun and healthy recreational opportunities for all. And the last one, Bluffton will build a connected community where participation in events, programs, and shared experiences enhance the quality of life, fostering a lasting sense of belonging and strengthening Bluffton's sense of pride and trust. So as we think about the county as a whole and then Bluffton, these do tie in to all of those, increasing the downtown, specifically the riverfront area, wanting to have a more diverse housing opportunities, focusing a little bit more on the government and government efficiency and just quality, as well as in general quality of place through parks and trails and everything else. So these focus areas tie into all of those as well. Expanding housing options to accommodate a growing population, enhancing downtown revitalization efforts to support local businesses and attract new development, improving the transportation and road infrastructure to enhance mobility and connectivity, upgrading water, sewer, and stormwater management systems to accommodate growth, and preserving the green spaces and integrating recreational amenities into urban development. Specifically, if you're looking at the map, it highlights the downtown riverfront hub, and some potential opportunities that are there. With that, I know I went through Bluffton pretty quickly, but do you have any questions about Bluffton?
I will say, Cody, you want to go back to that slide for a second? I do think it is worth calling out kind of this concept for the downtown riverfront hub. It's definitely, it's a concept more than it is an actual project, but when we looked at the community and the city as a whole, I think one of the strengths that it has, a few other communities in the county have this strength too, but you have that river that's running pretty much adjacent to downtown. There's some development on it. I know the chamber has their building and the community building over there, which is really great. It has a beautiful overlook onto the river, and you can hold events there. But is there other ways to do similar types of development to really take advantage of the riverfront? So we identified a few parcels just to the east of the Main Street Bridge that maybe a future opportunity or a place to consider just based on connectivity. Could be also an opportunity to layer in some green space or public access, public park right there on the riverfront. So in addition to the focus areas that Cody called into, there's a pretty significant section in Bluffton's component of the overall plan that talks about like riverfront development opportunities and what that might look like. So for Ossian, same thing, Cody, if you want to jump to the next slide. We did a similar public meeting, invited the public to come in and provide feedback on the very similar questions to what we posed in Bluffton. Somewhat similar responses. I'd say riverfront wasn't an opportunity here, so most folks gravitated towards quality dining and entertainment options. Public art maybe was not as big of a priority, but I think more of a focus on kind of the dining and entertainment piece really stood out as an overwhelming priority for those that attended the meeting.
So the vision principles for Ossian, this one we only have 3, focusing on growth for a thriving future, enhancing local offerings while preserving character, and strengthening the community while honoring tradition. So within the implementation matrix, these are really built out with each of them having multiple strategies, and then each strategy having multiple objectives and tactics to be able to complete these that become much more specific and fit within the SMART goal, specific, measurable, actionable, realistic. Is that the R? Realistic and timely, to allow for the community to look through those and start checking things off or really adapt as they go.
So for focus areas on this one, again, kind of trying to align with the kind of smart growth principles. So looking at existing land use, and when we look at where future growth could occur, making sure that industrial isn't going someplace out of place. I believe that purple industrial box aligns with their current industrial park. Concentrating single-family residential around existing single-family neighborhoods, and then commercial development opportunities really along the highway there. So that's what we focused on for this plan. Again, how do we leverage key corridors and existing assets to grow in an intentional and meaningful way that doesn't detract from the community character? In fact, does quite the opposite, adds to it, and really creates opportunities for those vibrant places, dining spaces, entertainment hubs that the public indicated was a preference when we think about what future development or redevelopment looks like in Ossian. Any questions on that one? Yep.
I have a question.
Sure.
So on this one, for town of Ossian, there are several residential sites that are in potential downtown industrial spots that are prone for development. And I didn't see that in the city of Bluffton besides the downtown. I'm assuming in the full plan there is sites for Bluffton.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yep, that's correct. And each one, Cody, correct me if I'm wrong, I know we did it for Bluffton and Ossian, but we looked at everything from industrial sites to infill residential development sites, and we even went and cataloged vacant residential properties within each of the community's downtowns, because we think those are really significant opportunities for future development.
Yeah. I think we have vacant lots throughout the county as well. So each, within the plan, again, we actually included, but each community will has a map of vacant parcels throughout the community, as well as some more, I'm trying to think where, yeah. The current zoning and land use too are called out within the plan as well. And then potential opportunities are mentioned then throughout.
All right, you want to jump to the next one if there's no more questions there. So for Uniondale, Cody, if you want to jump to my next slide. I think it was just myself that attended a public meeting, but we had pretty good discussion. we had a lot of discussion. So a little bit different format, again, smaller communities, everybody was invited to attend. Went to a council meeting and just kind of talked through some key questions, trying to understand what strengths, weaknesses, opportunity, threats, and priorities were for each of these places, each of these communities. I think what really stood out from Uniondale's standpoint in terms of strengths was just connectedness of the community. Also location, proximate to interstates and highways. And then the ballpark is a draw for people, and something that could be, I guess, underutilized, right? You get a lot of people that are coming for sports and tournaments, but what's keeping them in the community, right? To create that additional economic vibrancy. So it's a strength, but we also saw it as an opportunity. I think from a weaknesses standpoint, the elected officials are asked to do a lot with very little, especially when it comes to like staff. So I know we talked about the potential of having a part-time town manager or some type of position that would make it so you guys aren't having to go fill potholes, right? So just some fatigue, right, of people who are asked to do a lot in the community. And I think also infrastructure is another piece of this, water and sewer, just, trying to balance having to increase rates to keep up with maintenance, but also making sure that those utilities are affordable for residents is a threat and something that the town really is dealing with right now. So based on that, Cody, you want to talk about the 3 vision principles for Uniondale?
So for Uniondale, the 3 vision principles were sustainable growth through housing and economic development, to enhance infrastructure and the community amenities, and to preserve character while building community. So building off of the SWOT analysis that was performed, how can the town continue to grow while keeping its small town character and not putting too much of a strain on its resources?
And I think with this one, what we pulled out here was more about industrial development. I know, Jeff, when we talked, your big goal was, could we just get 150 new jobs, I think was the metric.
Put that within a few miles of town.
Yeah. So I really appreciated that because we had a good metric to go off of. But a lot of the growth scenarios looked at that, and we've highlighted some industrial development areas that we think could make some sense for the community. And then also, as we dove in more, there's some more specific strategies that look into staffing, potentially having a part-time town manager type role, items like that. And then also the sewer and wastewater aspect of it too, identifying some long-term solutions there. Any questions?
No, nailed it.
Awesome. And then I guess I'm still up. So for Veracruz, same thing, had a community meeting. Town hall was full with people, so really good turnout and feedback. I think one of the pieces that came out from all of the smaller communities that we went to was this tight-knit family feel that existed in all of them, which is really great. And I think that creates opportunities. Most we're welcoming to having new people, right? Maybe one or two more houses in the community would be a big win, but they are great places to raise a family. Another thing with Veracruz is you have that really awesome park that draws families in. So I think kind of that family-friendly atmosphere was probably the biggest strength. And then also have the river. And so access to the river is really important. I think when we came to visit, was it you guys who had the issue with the boat launch and vandalism?
I believe so, yes.
So
Yeah, because,
again, opportunity and challenge or threat, but I know that looking into security options was something that the town was going through at the time. And I think that was also something that came up when we looked at connectivity and transit. I know there was some worries about people obeying traffic laws and stop signs, especially close to the park. So how do we look at walkability and connectivity in a way that protects pedestrians and then also children that happen to be using your green spaces? And I think, downtown redevelopment was also something that we talked about and looked at, a big opportunity there. Even the idea of a general store came out and somehow tying that to the state park because you're so proximate to it, really right at the front gate. So being able to leverage all those things was where we really tried to focus these strategies. Cody, you want to talk about those principles?
Yeah. So because of the closeness to the state park and the river there, the first one is enhanced connectivity and outdoor emphasis. I think it's already a great asset, so continuing to grow with it. The second one is to continue to be safe, modern, and family-friendly community. And I think in general as a county, you guys do a really good job with that, but you can always continue to improve. And the last one is smart growth and revitalization. So within the town, some of the focus areas was managing land use in the flood-prone areas to minimize environmental risks. As you can see here, it's quite a bit of the areas. Investing in stormwater infrastructure to enhance flood resiliency, encouraging small-scale residential growth while preserving the town's rural character, improving public infrastructure, including roads and utilities, and protecting the green spaces and natural assets, particularly near the river. So I think some really good opportunities, especially to be able to connect both the state park and then to Bluffton as well with the river, are great.
Yeah, that was one of the other threats I think I forgot to mention was the floodway, the floodplain challenges that Veracruz has that not all the other communities have to deal with, and how much of the town potential areas for future development are in that floodplain and what that really restricts. So tried to touch on some strategies that were intentional about potential opportunities with green space or things like that allow you to preserve that character, but do it in a way that may create some activation in the floodplain. Any questions there for Veracruz's section? All right.
I will add that since you were out there, the park has been updated quite a bit.
Good.
We got a nice grant from the foundation,
That's awesome.
so.
I remember you were working on that. That's good. So for Pinedo, again, similar thing, did a community meeting with the council and anybody who wanted to join. Similar strengths, right? Residents know each other and are pretty supportive of one another. So tight relationships between community members. Responsive leadership, I also think really stood out to us. They're trying to make a difference. For them, it was using this as a process to identify what's next, what should they be working on. And that could be things that, I won't say simple, but included sidewalks and connectivity, right? Like where do we focus on doing repairs or improving connectivity? So that really came out in some of the concepts and items that we put in their section of the plan. As we think about the opportunities, and I guess kind of a weakness is just improving connectivity was paramount for them. Smaller scale commercial was also seen as an opportunity or want, even something like a gas station or kind of small town local convenience store. was viewed as a really good economic development opportunity for Penedo, which I think fits really well with their size and character. And then also just increasing housing opportunities for infill development, redevelopment, right? They want to add new residents, not at extreme growth level, but a few additional residents was seen as a positive for them as well. So wanted to look at those and their section of the plan. I think public safety was another one that really stood out as an area to continue to improve on. So that should align with these vision principles.
Yeah, so the vision principles for Penedo: safe, connected, and attractive community, engaged and collaborative governance, and quality living and growth for the future. Like all the other communities, these tie back into the countywide vision principles. So as each community completes the strategies and the objectives and tactics that are within their individual matrices, those will in turn achieve the visions for the county as a whole. So some of the focus areas for Penedo are preserving the agricultural land while allowing for measured residential growth, investing in roadway and utility infrastructure improvements, encouraging small business development to support the local economy, and enhancing stormwater management systems to improve resiliency and maintaining the town's small town character while supporting future growth. And sidewalks were one of the key items, and walkability throughout the town, so that's what this map calls out. Any questions on Penedo? All right, so we made it pretty much all the way through all the different communities. So next steps, I think the initial next step would be to approve the plan, but then it's to activate your local implementation teams, prioritize those high impact early action projects and get moving on those. Then to align with your regional partners, and that's not only just the region around you guys, but also the communities with each other who have similar action items that need to be completed. Make sure that you are in communication with each other for that. Securing funding and resources, and then, like I already said, communicating progress and making sure that everyone stays engaged throughout the process.
Yeah, I think Cody highlighted the next steps pretty well. The only thing I'd add is we did have a steering committee throughout this that had representatives from each of the communities. I think when we talk about local implementation teams, the idea was that group could continue to meet. Those people who were representing Uniondale, Penedo, Veracruz, Bluffton would kind of be the local people that were driving implementation at that level. So the hope is, Michael, that maybe that continues and moves forward. And then I know the plan is to approve it at the next Plan Commission meeting. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the next practical steps here, as far as going into the implementation process for the plan, is that here, one of our upcoming Plan Commission meetings, we'll have the official public hearing. This master plan gets adopted kind of like an ordinance amendment or the comprehensive plan initially did. So the Plan Commission will have a public hearing. At that point, they'll give a recommendation. Hopefully a due pass recommendation to each one of the jurisdictions that are affected by the plan. So the 5 participating jurisdictions would then get this for their official adoption phase. So our goal is to have that wrapped up by summertime this year, so that we can start working in the fall and winter time and kicking off implementation pieces of this. So the entire goal, and wanted to say special thanks to the Civitas group for helping us out and also dealing with the delays that we self-imposed on ourselves. But it's very important that we keep the ball rolling. This document isn't just a stagnant document on a shelf somewhere or an unread thing on a website, but actually is something that we take a step every year and do something about it and keep moving. there's lots of very ambitious goals here, from the small town initiatives, which will be greatly benefited by working together as a team. So I think we found out that each town had something that another town really needed, and then likewise that town had something they could give back. And whether it's that or the Plan Commission office or the county or city that can help with grant writing or how to handle those types of programming items, that we'd all work together to try to make these things happen. So then just really excited about getting this across the finish line, and wanted to thank how each one of you participated in this process. So, we have several people that here that helped with the vision principles in each one of the towns, and just really glad to have all of you as part of this plan. Thank you.
One additional thing to add too is we also don't want to see it sit on a shelf, and there are some ambitious goals in here that as time goes on, things happen, things change, that we would want to see this to be a living document, that it can be adapted, but ideally that you are trying to achieve these visions, but if they are to shift or change, that the document and the priorities within it would shift and change with them as well.
So that is our plan presentation. We brought 10 copies for Michael, but I'm sure he'd let anybody come flip 7 copies, excuse me. I'm sure he'd let people flip through them if you wanted to take a look in further detail. At some point, I'm sure it'll be posted to the county website as well. And we'll send, you probably already have a digital copy too.
Yes.
I know we're still working through a couple things on the Bluffton side to streamline some of the duplicated objectives, but other than that, we're pretty much all wrapped up. So feel free to come flip through there, and then we're happy to stick around and talk or answer questions if you'd like. So thank you.